Hello Internet, Bardic Monk here, and welcome back to Pendragon. Today we're going to be taking a look at an adventure that I would recommend you run for any first-time tables. If you were looking to start a campaign, I would just try this adventure out with your group and see if you guys enjoy it, and if you do, then to continue on from here. I have a couple of notes on when this adventure would take place, but it would be the year before the actual nightly stuff happens, so everybody is still a squire, and it is the year right before you get knighted. So everybody is on equal terms. Everybody is a squire, and everybody is currently training to become knights. And the adventure is going to rely on just you going through a little bit of training, figuring out what squires do, then going on your own little adventure, and then coming back to report and seeing what court is all about. If that doesn't show you what this game has, then I don't know what will. Honestly, it's an approach that I have for most things, as I've shown in this channel before. The first Pendragon video that I have, Pachow, is just how to get into the game as quickly as possible, which is essentially write a name down on a piece of paper and start rolling dice and just noting what you do. And in this one, it's very much just like start with the very basics of the system. We're going to get through the season, and after that you'll have a general grasp of what this game has to offer. And it's meant to be just a real quick, like, this is what you got, this is what you would do, this is what the mechanics are, this is what the character sheet has, this is the world that we're running around in, and these are the things that are going to show up in the game as we run it. And you're able to grasp onto any part of this, players. So, we'll choose accordingly as a group. For anybody who is going to play in this adventure, there are spoilers in here, but this session is mainly supposed to be an introduction and is very light on like any sort of like actual like meaningful spoilers. If you want to keep it a mystery of what you're going to do, then you could pause here, tell whoever's going to, or suggest this video to whoever's going to be running the game at your table, and they will continue from where you left off, I guess. But the idea of this adventure is that everybody kind of knows what's going to happen this year, and then you're just going to play through it. And if you want to preserve the mystery of this session, I will not fault you for it. You can stop watching right now and then continue on from here. Have your game master continue on from here. But if I'm trying to give you as much time as possible to pause, so please pause the video, and as soon as you've done that, we can move along. For everybody else who is here, specifically other game masters and anybody who's going to be helping out on figuring out what we're supposed to be doing in future steps, here's the basic groundwork for what we're doing. We're going to figure out how to roll dice, what rolling dice entails in this system, what the character sheet looks like. We're going to have some competitions within the party, so there's a little bit of PvP. Not in any meaningful, angry ways, but more like race to see who goes the fastest. Do jousting to see who's last on their horse. And there's no like combat that's going to end on a player character's death before we even start the campaign. After that, we will go to a village, and we will talk to an NPC. We will then go hunting for a quarry, and then we will return, have an encounter on the road back, and then report on what has happened. And that will be the end of the session. It's very simple. It should be fairly quick, but there's a lot of opportunities for a party to roleplay. This should be like an hour and a half session, but just like everything else that I run, it ran for a little bit longer than that. Specifically, it ran for a night and a half. So I run fairly like slow games, but I just let any adventure that I run breathe. So with that, I'll with that all out of the way, let's continue on to the actual first steps of this game. Things that you're going to need, specifically, we're going to need some dice. You're going to need 20-sided dice in this game, and d6s, so 6-sided dice. And you're going to need something to take notes on and something to take notes with. Aside from that, you're also going to need a character sheet, which I believe I have somewhere in here. Somewhere on this table. There you are. So I have the character sheet that we have for Sir John that we made together in the previous video, if you want to know how to make a character. And I've just transcribed everything from that video onto this character sheet. And I also have a recommended sheet of, what is it, combat resolution. So combat action resolution. This is for anything that's competitive. So if you're trying to get a success versus somebody else's success, you would use this table. You don't have to worry about whether there's damages or anything like that, but just trying to figure out if both combatants tie versus the character wins or the opponent wins. So I would use this for, I reference this a lot, and I use this in my GM screen when I'm running the game. So you have this, and you would also need some notes. So any notes that you're going to take for this campaign, this little adventure, should be fairly quick. I'm going to, fairly quick, fairly easy to get. And I'm just going to go through this, and hopefully we can get through this together. The whole adventure is this. There is a little bit after this, but it's mostly referencing the Game Master's Guide, which is not this one, it's the book below that. So the Game Master's screen, Game Master's Handbook, and we're just going to be rolling dice. So again, we're going to be rolling against certain target numbers. We don't really have to reference anything outside of a character sheet and maybe a stat block that you can write down on an index card from looking at this video. So I hope all this helps. With that, let us begin. Alright, so our first note that we're going to have here, just for the first adventure, the first thing I'm going to give you guys here is the starting year that you're going to be playing in. This is going to take place in the year before you become knighted, and the reason for doing this is that everybody's going to be squires, everybody's going to be on equal footing, and you're all just training. So the youngest squire might even become the leader in this adventure. We'll see. But the point is, for this first note is, you want to play the year before everything starts going down. So it won't matter what happens here. There will be, there can be, other repercussions from this adventure in the future, because if your characters deal with this in an outstanding way, then you can carry that on to your actual campaign as you go along. So the 4 years that we're going to be dealing with are, if you're playing the Great Pendragon Campaign, just basic as it is currently before it gets to 6th edition, you'll be starting in the year 485. If you aren't playing in this year and you actually have the early Uther period stuff, so the Book of Uther, you're going to be starting in 480 if you want to get the extra years. If not, then you're going to be looking at the year 508 for the adventure. What is it? The Adventure of the Crucible from page 209 of the Game Master's Handbook. And last we have the year 510 for the Sword Campaign from the starter box, as I've mentioned here before, so Pachow here. And depending on which one of those 4 years you're going to be dealing with, you're just going to be doing the year beforehand. So in this case, I'm just going to reference the beginning of the early Uther period. So it would be 480, and now it's just 489. Now, things to note, the years between these adventures, if you are playing in the early periods before King Arthur, you're going to be dealing with Sir Ilad. So Sir Ilad is going to be the person that we're reporting to, the leader of... He's going to be the Castellan of Castle Vagon, who is also the Marshal of Salisbury. He is replaced in the future, when you're dealing with the years 508 or 510, by Sir Lycus. When we're talking about Count Roderick, he is from the early periods, so 480 or 485 it's going to be Count Roderick. And in the later years, it's going to be his wife, Countess Ellen, who is the mother and regent of Robert, who's the actual Count of Salisbury. So the purpose of this adventure, to learn the character sheet and the basic mechanics of King Arthur Pendragon, or just Pendragon for short. So in this case, we're just going to be looking at the character sheet, and if I just leave this here, I'm going to highlight that the two things that we're going to be looking at for the first part of this adventure are going to be the traits and the skills. When we get the camera to look at our characters, we're going to fly in and we're zooming in on our characters. For this case, we're going to look at Sir John, who is not Sir John yet, sorry. John of Idmiston. John of Idmiston is a layabout squire who is a little lazy and is kind of overworked, so he does have an energetic trait, but he's not famously energetic. So I'm going to ask this question, and you're going to ask this question to your party. The party is just going to get this question in general. So the question is, what are we doing? Just look at each other, look at your character sheets, try to figure out what it is that your character does. We're going to see how our characters are reacting to certain things. We are going to get a little bit into character. So John is just going to be a little bit of a layabout, and he's not going to be doing anything. So he's sleeping in the... where the horses are, the stables. So he's going to be sleeping in the stables, and there are other squires around here. This is a big castle, Castle Vagon, located here. So Castle Vagon is an actual castle. It's not just a manor. And Castle Vagon has a lot of squires training all at the same time. So along with John, there are a couple of other squires. We are going to borrow a couple of characters from my game. So we're going to have John, Alyssa, Cedric, and Alfred. Alright, so those are going to be our four main characters for right now. And we're not going to be focusing on all of them, but for the total grasp of this scene, what we had, the actual answers that I got for this were Cedric is brushing the horse of his knight, so he's taking care of the horse. Alfred is currently cleaning the boots of his knight's armor, and Alyssa is out getting fletching for a hunt. So she's getting, I don't know if fletching is the correct word, but she's getting sticks and wood in general for making arrows. So I believe that's going to be fledging. And that means that all three of them are actually doing something while John is being a layabout. Any answer is okay, and all of them are going to get you a check mark. So in this case, we're going to have a check mark added to our character sheets. We're going to look at the traits, and depending on what your characters answer, the squires are going to answer whether they're doing something or they're not. And either one is fine. So if they're doing something, you're going to check energetic. And if you are being lazy, you're going to check lazy. You are checking it, you are not rolling on it. This is also a bit of wording. I'm not sure if this is just at my table, but when we make a check in D&D at any of my tables, it's usually, oh, check, what is it? Check stealth, and then we'll roll for it. But that's not what I'm trying to do. When you check something, the terminology here, we are checking something if we're actually going to check mark it. So I'm checking lazy. And if we're going to test something, we're going to roll for whatever it is. So testing versus checking, we're going to use that terminology moving forward. Also, now we have to see what skill are they improving. For Cedric, who is brushing the horse, we are going to say that that's going to be part of horsemanship, which I loop in all the horse-related stuff for this. You could make an argument for stewardship, but for me, I just made it so that if you have to deal with your horse in any way, it's going to be horsemanship. For Cedric, that's who we just did. For Alyssa, she is currently doing stuff for hunting, so I'm actually going to give her a check for hunting. For Alfred, he is currently cleaning his knight's boots, and in doing so, he is currently going to get a check for courtesy because he knows what his station is, and he's just doing what his knight told him to do. So we have a check for courtesy for him. And then we have John. John is currently sleeping. He's lazy, but he's having a dream about something. So regardless of which approach you're going for, we're still going to give you a skill check for this first decision. And in this case, I'm just going to have the player kind of tell me, oh, what is it that your character's dreaming about? Which one of these skills does that fall under? So we're going to see if maybe he's having a dream about, it could be combat, but I think it would be more interesting if he was having a dream about singing for some reason. He's having a dream about singing, and it's, I just want to roll to see what this is. So we're going to test singing just for this first one. I'm testing against 5. So if I roll a 5 or lower, that's a success, and if it's 6 or above, it's a failure. So that's going to be my introduction to how the system rolls. Ooh, with a 4, that's a success. So he's having a good dream about singing. If he had failed, he's singing horribly in front of a bunch of people and he's getting embarrassed. But all in all, everybody has something to check, and we are going to move on to the actual start of this game. We had our first question. We are looking at this character sheet. We now know where traits and skills are. There's a couple things here, but we're not looking at that right now. We might be looking at our name. We might be looking at these, and that's it. The other three, I think probably Alyssa of everybody is going to wake up John. And John is woken up before Sir Elad comes out. He's coming out to get everybody ready for training. And this introduction can be as elaborate or as simple as possible. For this, we're just going to keep it simple. I want this to be as quick as possible to get into, and we'll go into the further notes. We are going to have Sir Elad or Sir Lycus speaking later, but for this first thing, we're just going to go straight into our first actual rolls. For this first thing, everybody's going to jump on a horse, and we are going to train to see how to charge. The charging skill is located underneath your skills, underneath your combat skills, so this lower box. And you have a charge skill, as well as a horsemanship skill. Currently my charge is 10, so John is going to be rolling against 10 whenever we check any of these. All these activities are going to be a roll against a static number. There are not going to be any bonuses, and we are going to have 3 tries to complete it. The first test, everybody's jumped on a horse, everybody has a lance, but these are squires, and they are going to themselves have to set up this training, and all they're going to be doing is hitting a hanging plate from the bottom of a branch. And this plate is specifically set up so that you can ride towards it and then hit it with your lance. And that's it. That's all you need to do is just aim at that and hit it. Lances are famously hard to wield, and they also need to be like couched underneath your arm. There's a lot going on here, and this is just one of the many skills that you as a knight are going to have to master. But in this case, we're just testing to see whether we could even hit a plate. We have 4 characters, so I'm just going to roll 2 at a time, and we're just going to go down the list, and we'll see who succeeds and who fails. So, first, John and Alyssa. John, Alyssa. And I'm rolling for both of them against 10. In this first roll, Alyssa passes. She no longer has to roll. John failed. He runs past, doesn't hit the plate. And then we have Cedric and Alfred. Okay. Cedric has failed. We're not going to worry about the 20s yet. And Alfred has passed. So we have that. Next we have the second roll. So now Alyssa and Alfred are no longer testing. And now we have John and Cedric both trying to beat a 10. And that's it. Second round. Both of them fail again. And third round. Both of them are going wild. Probably snapping these test lances on the actual tree instead of on the plate. So this last one, we're going to roll one at a time, and we're going to say Cedric first. Cedric is going to roll, and we're going to see if he passes or fails. Again, trying to beat a 10. And he succeeds. Finally, the third try. The last try. And John, let's see if maybe he's failing because he's not training as hard because he's lazy. We'll see. And he fails. So John does not pass this test, but we now know if you have a number and you're testing it, you have to roll at or below that number in order to succeed. And if you roll above that number, you're going to fail. That's what we're trying to get across for this first round of rolls. Okay? The second activity that we're going to be doing is we're going to be charging against a quintain, which I know that there are actual quintains, but essentially what we're going to be rolling against is, think of it as 2 sticks, a shield, and a sling with a rock in it. The point of this test is going to be, as a knight, you're going to charge and then hit the shield. And the whole point of this practice is to dodge the rock. So on a success, you're going to dodge the rock. On a success, you're going to hit the shield. And now we have a competitive roll. So we're going to say I'm adding a static success value. Think of this as a new mechanic. This is not part of the actual rules, but this is just how I do things. We want to introduce you to partial successes. So if you succeed, but you don't succeed as well as somebody else, that is a partial success. And that's what we're going to be learning here. So if we are testing against my skill of 10, so I'm charging again at a 10 with John. And we're going to be focusing on John from now on, just to keep this simpler. For John, he's rolling against 10, and the static value, that means that the success that he's rolling against for his opponent. So his opponent, we're just going to assume that they succeed by rolling a number 5, right? So they've rolled a 5, and we need to be lower than a 10 but above a 5 in order to get a full success. If we get a partial success, so if we roll at a 4 or below, we are going to get hit by the rock as it swings. But if we get a success, we're going to hit the shield and dodge the rock. So it's as if your opponent had rolled a 5. You're trying to beat them, okay? So John is going to charge against this quintain. He rolls a 20. That's a failure. That's the first roll. Second roll. He rolls a 13. That's also a failure. We're just going to keep trying this until he succeeds, I guess. I'm going to give him 2 more tries. Maybe he's just really bad at this. The third roll is exactly a 10. So he has succeeded and he's beat a 5. So he manages to, on the last try, charge, hit the shield, and dodge the rock as it swings by to try to hit him in the back of the head. Last, but certainly not least, we have the third activity, which is a horse race. And the horse race is unique in that this is not a combat, but this is going to be just rolling to see who gets to a point first. What we're going to have to pull up right now is the horsemanship skill for all our characters. So in this case, we're going to have a horsemanship of 12 for John. For Alyssa and Alfred, both of them have a horsemanship of 10, and Cedric has a horsemanship of 15. And this is going to matter for just competition. I am going to put this to the side, and I would recommend that you're going to need some sort of counter. Whether you want to use dice or not, for me, I'm using cards. You can use a set of playing cards if you want, but in this case, I'm just going to be using any sort of card that I have, so I have a bunch of blank cards here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself 16 cards, because this is going to be like if there are 16 spaces around the castle. Let me just double check that. Yes, 16 cards. And we're going to be checking to see if we have successes, failures, fumbles, or critical successes. Okay, so now we are introducing the third level of success. All right, we have successes versus failures in the first activity. Then we have partial successes as a option in the second activity. Now we're going to be seeing the critical side of both failure and success. 16 cards, 13, 16. We're not going to be giving everybody cards, but just for the sake of showing you how this is going to work per player, we're going to keep it simple and just have this. And we have these numbers just in case he needs to see who he beats at the end of this activity. So we have 16 cards. There are around Castle Vagon, let's say we have the space around Castle Vagon, and we're going to have characters. So John is going to be this little figure here, the painted one. We're going to have a, let's see, in the castle we're going to have Old Man Elad, or the marshal known as Sir Lycus. And then the other three characters that we have, so Alfred, Cedric, and Alyssa, they're on their horses when they're trying to see who's winning and who's going where. So this is more for illustrative purposes. There are 16 spaces around this castle, okay? And once we get the 16th card done, once we get through the 16 spaces, we finish the race. There are catch-up mechanics and everything, but we're just going to keep it as simple as possible for this first game. And also, this is not a mechanic that's central to the actual game. This is more of just to show how to use horsemanship for a race. And this is what I used, okay? So with those 16 spaces, and I would recommend using as many. For me, I'm very tactile. I need to see, a thing and like feel a thing. So I have my 16 cards for everybody. I just used basic playing cards when I did this at the table. Everybody has 16, and we have 4 results that I'm going to be putting here. On a critical success, which I'm going to go over in a second, you get rid of. Actually, we're going to say criticals for success, fumbles for failure. We're rolling against a 12 for John. That means that if I roll a 12 or lower, that's a success. If I ever roll a 20, that's a fumble. In this first adventure, nobody has a skill of 20, so it's always going to be a fumble in this case. But a critical in this game is not a natural 20, obviously. Instead, it is the target number that you're rolling against, meaning that your target numbers are constantly going to be moving depending on what's going to be happening in your game. So for John, we are rolling against a 12, so if I ever roll a 12, that's a critical success. And in that case, I'm going to be rolling, discarding 3 cards. This is an example of how everything's going to work. I think it's just going to be John versus Cedric, and we'll see how this goes. Cedric is going to be the white die, and then I'm going to have the multicolored die for John. We're rolling against 12 and 15. Here we go. We have a success versus critical success. Okay, so Cedric gets rid of 2 cards. So he would discard 2. 1, 2. But for John, he had his critical success, so he's getting rid of 3. He has an early lead. And we're going to have the second roll. 10 versus a 5, so both of them have a success. Both of them get rid of 2 cards. We do another roll. It's an 11 versus a 7. Both of them, again, 2 cards. And we're going to keep it simple. Still 2 cards. Still 2 more successes. Right now, we've gone through a lot. We are halfway through this deck. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes. We're past the halfway point. And there's only 1 card. There's only a 1 card difference between the 2 characters. There can be a situation where you are very far behind, and in which case, what I end up doing for anybody who needs to catch up, I do make it so that their successes are doubled. So in this case, if somebody's like 5 cards behind, I believe it would just be at 5 or more cards, that's when you get to do a catch up. So if we have Alfred or Alyssa taking up the rear, and they're not able to catch up normally, we have them rolling to see if they beat a 10 or not. Both of them fail, but they do not critically fail. So instead of getting rid of just 1, they get rid of 2. And that's part of the catch-up mechanic. You just double what it is. Alright. Again, we're going to see between John and Cedric what's happening. Both of them fail, so both of them get rid of 1 card. Then we have both successes again. And this might be... This is turning into an actual neck-and-neck race between the 2. Nope. Because now John gets rid of 1 and Cedric gets rid of 2. And we're down to the last stretch. There are only 2 cards left for both of them. And we'll see if we need a tiebreaker or not. Because of this, I would now have this... if there's a tie, we would start dealing with this as a partial success situation. So we're actually going to see what happens. We're still just testing critical successes versus successes or failures and fumbles. So both of them succeed. So both of them get rid of 2. And now both of them have 0. And we're going to compare their last rolls. Both of them succeed, but John has a partial success because he rolled a 1 versus Cedric's 4. Because of this, Cedric is the winner of this race. If they had both rolled the same number, so if they had both rolled a 4, I would make that an actual tie. We don't need to force any winners, but that would be the way that I would run a horse race in Pendragon. It's also the way that I ended up doing it, and my table seemed to enjoy it a lot. So I'm also reporting on this adventure after having run it. This is not just my theory. This is or theory crafting. This is actually at the table tested, people approved, and everybody seemed to like it. So with that said, we're now done with the horse race. This next scene, part 3. We have done all the training prior to this, and now we're at part 3. And we have Sir Elad or Sir Lycus explaining the following.
Squires, we have need of your talents. Will you take on a small quest for the good of the county? The peasants have reported a man-eating bear in the West Acres. I never heard of such a thing. It's probably a rabid dog. Well, even if it is a chipmunk, though, you must go and take care of it, because they claim it is too dangerous for them to come and work the Lord's fields. He shakes his head ruefully.
Now, the things to get across in this interaction. The village of Imber needs help. They are reporting that a beast is preventing travel, and the squires will need to hunt the beast down so the peasants can work the Lord's fields. After that, they need to report back on what occurred. This is the adventure that we're going to be starting at. But first, he says,
A joust to determine who among you will be the leader.
So, activity 4 now for today's adventure is going to be combat. We're actually going to be seeing combat between our PCs, our player characters, or we're not player knights yet, so yes, PCs. And it's going to be a jousting competition for the leadership of the adventuring party. So, charge versus charge. Everybody, for the simplicity of this, we have a charge of 10 for everybody, so we're going to keep this simple. Actually, I'm going to keep this note here. And we have everybody just competing on this. You want to focus on how your characters feel, who's getting like really amped up for this, who wants to be the leader versus who's like trying to skirt it. But we're just going to let the rules decide who wins. 10 versus 10, everybody, and we're going to do a real quick like tournament here. I would keep this as simple as possible. We are seeing combat for the first time, and it's really a version of the partial successes table that we're going to be looking at. So in this case, I believe I have it here. Yes. The partial successes table, we're going to be seeing our results here versus the opponent's results here. In this case, we're going to see John versus Alyssa. Alyssa being the white, John being the colorful. And I'm just going to move everything to the side a little bit. Alright. And we're going to compare the charge results. So again, we're both rolling against a 10, and we're going to see what happens. They both set their spears, they both couch them, and they both start charging towards each other in this joust. It is important to note that these are training weapons more for anything else, so they're going to snap and break very easily. They're going to make a point of making contact, and they're going to break after having enough force to possibly knock somebody off of a horse. We are not tracking damage for this. We're just checking charge versus charge to perform a joust action. We're seeing who's going to be the last one standing, and it should be fairly simple. You can do what I did and have... I'm having John replace another NPC that I had. If you want to, you can have it so that everybody gets a turn versus everybody and seeing who goes forward from there. But for simplicity's sake, we're just going to have everybody try once since they're paired up. John versus Alyssa. Both of them failed to make contact on their first runs against each other. So both of them pass each other, nothing happens. They reset and then start charging at each other again. And John makes the connection for this, so her spear, her lance goes wide, and John connects directly at her, and she's knocked out of the race. So now John is going to be moving forward versus either Cedric or Alfred. Cedric, Alfred. Again, 10s. They both succeed, and now we're going to compare their results. We're going to compare these two successes versus each other. We have a critical success with Alfred versus Cedric's success, but because his success doesn't beat a critical success, it changes to a partial success. So we're going to see the result for a critical success versus a partial success. The character, in this case Alfred, wins. The opponent suffers plus 46 damage minus armor and shield or parry protection value. Again, we're not tracking damage, but we do know that the character, in this case Alfred, succeeds. So Cedric is knocked out, and now it is John versus Cedric. John versus Alfred. And let's see who wins this combat. Who is going to be the leader? In this case, it's 10 versus 10. And Alfred is on fire. Alfred rolls another 10. He crits versus my partial success. So again, Alfred wins. I am knocked out. John is knocked out, and Alfred is now the de facto leader because of that. So this group is now led by Alfred, and now we have our first taste of combat and how combat roles are going to work in this game. So we have gone from testing whether we even succeed or fail versus a regular number from a skill, a target number. Then we see what a partial success is. Then we see what a critical versus a fumble is. And lastly, we're going to use all of that to determine who wins during combat rounds. This is going to matter during hunts and during any combats in the game. You guys are knights, you're going to be fighting a lot, so this is how we're determining everything in this game. With that, we are done with the last part of Castle Vagon. So after we have determined who the leader is, Sir Elad or Sir Lycus is going to say,
"Go to Imber and ask for Old Gar, the priest. Any questions? Anyone? Now, do you want to leave this afternoon or tomorrow morning? It's a half-day's ride to Imber."
In this case, if you were going to leave now, it is currently the afternoon, and you would show up there at night, and you would start the next morning. You could start hunting during the next morning. If you leave tomorrow morning, you would show up in the afternoon, and you have half a day to start hunting. I would also note that this is the first decision of your players, aside from what they were doing at the beginning, but the first actual decision on what your players are going to do. Even though there is a leader, treat them as the tiebreaker and consult the entire table. What do they want to do? What does everybody agree on? For a specifically, I guess, a more spicy table, you can have the leader actually just take over and just be the leader. But depending on how your tables go, how everybody feels about decision making, I would recommend just having the group discuss it, make a decision, and then move forward with that. Lastly, we have the actual travel. So, depending on what you choose, in this case, we're going to say that they leave now. They're going to leave now, so they're going to run off, prepare to travel, and then they're going to jump on their horses and then start going. In this case, we're going to go to Activity 5, which is the travel, and we're going to trace the path from Castle Vagon to Imber. Give this map, or give a representation of this map to your player, who's the leader, and have them trace the path from Castle Vagon northeast to Shrewton, then northwest to Till's Head, and then on the other side of the hills is going to be Imber, right here. When we reach the village of Imber, we're going to see they're going to meet Old Gar. We arrive at the village of Imber, and here are a few notes on the village, just to give anybody who wants to flesh it out a little bit more. The only NPCs that we have here are Old Gar and his mistress, and that's it. There are a few hundred people here, so there is space for you to expand on this, but for the most part, this is how Imber is explained in the book. So, Imber is a large but poor village of a few hundred. It's surrounded by small fields. They have a spring pond instead of a stream. Their mill is ox-driven. And the hides left out to dry show that they focus on tanning and hunting for survival and income. So it is a hunting village more than anything else. And a hunting village is having a problem with this bear. Old Gar, the description that they give him is he is an older priest. He is a field medic, essentially. He has the basic first aid of a field medic. He likes hunting, but he's too old to fight. He lives in sin with his mistress off his earnings as a priest. He's barely literate, but memorized all the necessary Latin phrases. Something I have not noted here is that he's also the youngest son of a knight. So we know that he is of nobility, but he's just somebody who could become a knight for X or Y reasons. So he took the cloth. When they meet him, he's kindly and offers his home and food, which in this case, we're going to say that it's barley porridge with onions, with water to drink. He offers his home and food to the visiting squires while they are here. And after arriving at the village, depending on when you left, so we leave first thing in the afternoon, we show up at night, we talk to Old Gar, and he lets us stay for the night. And then we are starting up the next morning on the hunt. The party is going to be hunting over a certain amount of turns. We're going to say that these are hour-long rounds. When you are hunting, we have a number of rounds per day depending on the season. Right now it is autumn, so we have 8 rounds. If it was spring, if it's spring or autumn, it's 8 rounds. If it's winter, there's only 6 rounds. And if it is summer, there's going to be 10 rounds. But in this case, we're just sticking with the spring and autumn, so we're currently in autumn. There's going to be 8 rounds of hunting that we're going to be dealing with here. I'm going to keep this simple. And step 1, we're going to determine the hunters and the party members. The hunters are going to be the people who are actually going to be rolling against their hunting skill, which is located right here. And in this case, for John, we're going to be rolling against an 8. He is not going to be acting as a party member to Alyssa and the other boys because Alyssa has a ridiculous hunting of like 16. We're not rolling for her. She's eventually going to find this bear. We're going to be focusing on what happens to John. Things to note, again, we're going to have 8 rounds here. We are determining that there are 2 hunting parties. And because Alyssa knows her way around the woods, we're gonna have John traveling with Old Gar with the extra horse. So step 1, we're determining who the hunters are versus the party members. We have 2 hunters, John and Alyssa, and each of them are accompanied by their party members and a pack of dogs to help in the hunt. So we have a few peasants running around with a gaggle of dogs, hunting party of dogs, and they're just barking, trying to get the scent of this bear and help point out where it is. But the first part of this hunt is trying to find out where to start. So we go on to step 2. Hunters research for the quarry by making a hunting roll. If Old Gar is brought to the hunt with the squires on a spare horse, he grants a +5 bonus to the skill. So we're rolling a hunting of 8 plus 5 is a 13. If I normally roll an 8, that's going to be a critical success, but because my hunting has changed from an 8 plus 5 is 13, so because I have a hunting of 13 now, a 13 is going to be the critical result. That's how the movement of these target numbers works. You're still, whatever you're rolling against is going to be that number that you need in order to get a critical success. Alright? Now, we have a 13. I'm going to be rolling against that. And on a success, the characters find the bear's tracks and the chase begins. So, in this case, in this first round, this is going to be the first round, so the first hour. We have an 8. That would have been a critical success, but because it moved, is now just a regular success. We do find the bear's tracks, and we start chasing down the bear. That is the first bit of the day gone, but it's the first hour we find the bear. Let's see where the other party is. They have managed to somehow fail on that one, so we find the bear first. We find the trail of the bear first. Somewhere off in the distance for this party, they hear dogs barking and baying, and what is it when a lot of dogs are barking? Is questing. So you hear a lot of questing out in the distance, and meanwhile, John is somehow had this luck with Old Gar, and they managed to get to the trail before the other party. Now, with that, we go on to step 3 with our current party. This party who failed on the first round is still stuck in step 2. They're still trying to find the start of this trail. If they want to give up trying to compete for this hunt to see who gets it there first, they can become the party members to the people who are currently chasing down the bear. But there is a chance of me losing the bear, and because I'm leading, we're going to lose her 16 on her roll, so we don't want to do that. They're going to stick to what they know, and we probably just got lucky or are hunting something completely different, which can happen. So step 3, the hunters, with the help of their dogs, will chase the bear until they catch it, or lose the trail. The Yoggish Bear is smarter than the average bear, so it has an unusually high avoidance, which I have confirmed is also in the books, has an avoidance of 10 to contest the hunters. If a hunter has 10 or more cards in hand, they resolve the truly lost event. Only one player may resolve this event. Otherwise, roll in the obstacle table and then go back to step 2. We're going to start with in step 1, hunters are given 6 pursuit cards at the start of the hunt. So I should have done that at the beginning here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. If we ever get to 10, we get truly lost, and then we have to resolve a once in a lifetime event. Literally once in a lifetime event. If you resolve this for one player, nobody else can do it. And there is a bonus event for anybody who ends up getting so lost that they can't help with the hunt. They can have something else happen that's very cool. We'll worry about that if and when I end up losing this character. So, getting lost in the woods with Old Gar. Alright, so we're going to have 2 rolls. We're going to have John's hunting roll, which is still currently 13, versus the bear's avoidance of 10. So we're rolling a 13 versus a 10. I'm just going to write that down. And what we have here is where we're going to bump into modifiers. So we are hunting in our home county of Salisbury, and in doing so, hunting in your home county confers a +5 bonus by default. This carries over to every hunt that takes place in your home county, not just this one. The hunt is taking place in a forest, so there are no modifiers to the terrain. In this case, that means that we are now rolling against an 18 versus the bear's 10. Because we have Gar with us, we are rolling an 18, so it's going to be +5 from Gar, +5 from it being in the woods that I know in my home county of Salisbury. And that means I get to 18. For the case of Alyssa, this brings her to above 20. And I'm not going to go over... Actually, I should go over that. Alright, we're going to do a real quick aside to what is happening to Alyssa when she gets to step 3 of this roll. Because on her next hour, she's going to succeed. She's going to be on this trail, and then when she rolls, she's going to be rolling against a result of... What are we? She has 16. She gets +5. She's at 21. Alright. In this case, if your target number ever gets above a 20, we have 2 things are going to happen. One, there's no longer a fumble. If you roll a 20, that's no longer a fumble. That's actually the highest target number that you can roll. So if you ever get your bonuses to at 20 or above, a result of 20 is always going to be a critical success now. Alright? If you have a target number that is above a 20, in this case we have a 21, the excess is going to now bump down the target number and the critical range. I'm going to go over the math real quick, but in this case, again, 6 + 5 is 21. On a 20, we're going to get a crit. Since we're at 21, we're going to move the critical range down by 1. So on a 19 or 20, that's a critical hit. If she was traveling with Old Gar, she would have a +10 to her rolls. In that case, she would start off with 16. She bumps it up by 5, goes to 21. She goes up by 5 one more time because she has Old Gar with her. And that goes to 26. That means at 20, we now have an excess of 6. So the critical range for Alyssa when she rolls with both of those bonuses of being on her home county and traveling with Old Gar, she gets a critical range of 6 points. So it's going to be a critical if she rolls anything that is 14. It's going to be 20 minus the 6, so 14 or above. At 16, for Alyssa, she is bumped up to 26. If she rolls a 14 or better, in this case, she rolled an 8. she just gets a success. We're at an 18. We're going to roll, and we're going to see what happens with these hunting results. So, John, let's figure out what happens to you. He rolls a 6, which is below his 18, so it's a success. You draw closer to your prey, discard a card. If you have no cards in hand, which we still have 5, move to step 4. And that's the goal of this step. You're trying to get close enough to your prey to just catch them and then start fighting them, or hunt them down. I am rolling a 6. Oh, that's right. There are different results. I got caught up on this part. All right, now we have the results for this are John's result versus the John's hunting versus the bear's avoidance. So we'll see. Again, 18 versus 10. I rolled a 7, which is a success, versus the bear's 3, which is also a success, but I got a full success versus the bear's partial. So I am doing the success. I discard card, and that's the end of that first round. We are now down to 6 hours remaining. The timer is just to see how many days it takes, and this is not going to reset. The amount of cards that you have in hand are not going to reset between days. This is just to test to see how long it takes for your characters to hunt down this bear, for story reasons. So with that, we're now going to see what happens to Alyssa. She rolled a 1, so she is now on this. She's now on the hunt with us on the bear, but she's not approaching from the same vector as us. She's found a different trail. And her versus the bear, just for giggles, she has a target number of 21, so she has a critical range of 19 or 20, versus the bear's avoidance of 10. I should have rolled in that table right here. He does a partial success again, so he has a 1 versus her 15. And that's not a 19 or 20, so that's just a regular success. She discards 1 card, and she's 1 spot closer to finding the bear. For the rest of this, we're just going to focus on John. John rolls again on the 6th hour. It's the 3rd hour right now. And it is his success versus our success as well. Yep. So we discard 1 more card. Because we beat his success, he only has a partial. Do it one more time. We're down to 5. The bear critically fumbles on avoiding us, and we succeed. So in this case, I would make this result just double the amount of cards that we're discarding. So we discard 1 because we succeeded, and because the bear fumbled, we're going to discard 1 more card, and we now have 4 more hours in the day. That means we're at noon, essentially. Think about it that way. It's going to be 8 hours of daylight, and we're halfway through the day. So it is around noon, and we have 3 more cards left. We're going to try one more time. The bear fumbles again. We succeed again. That means we're going to get rid of 2 more cards. We're down to the last one. And lastly, the bear fails versus our success. And we almost got a critical success. We catch our prey. So we find the prey and we move to step 4. If we ended up having any failures, we're going to see what happens on a failure. So we both roll, and he gets a 4 versus my, let's say, 19. Yeah, we're going to say a 19. Come on, if I can find it. We're going to go with 20. If I correctly fumbled, you lost the trail. So in this case, if I had like 3 cards left, my result of a fumble says you lost the trail, draw 2 cards. I'm up to 5 cards. And if I have 10 or more cards in hand, I resolve the truly lost event. Again, we're not going to worry about that. And we're going to roll on the obstacles table. So the obstacles table I've brought down to just 6 results. We're going to roll to see where we're at. On a 4, a hidden ditch. Make an awareness roll. My awareness is an 8. I'm going to roll versus an 8. I rolled a 6, so that's a success. If you fail, you suffer a -5 modifier to your next horsemanship roll made during this hunt. And these negatives are going to apply for other obstacles that you roll into. If you didn't bring Oldgar a horse, he wouldn't be able to give you your bonus 5, and chances are you'd have a harder time catching up to the bear. Meanwhile, we're just going to see, because we catch up to him in hour 3. Come on, there you go. We catch up to him in hour 3, and we might catch him on the first day. We'll see. And for Alyssa, we tested twice, so we have 6, 5, 4. So we have 3 more tries to see how many cards she gets rid of. She got rid of 1 card the first round. That's a regular success, so she gets rid of 1 more. Another regular success. Another regular success. So she is still hunting the bear. She has not joined us yet. And we catch up to the bear. In this case, we jump into the scene where John has now spotted this bear. And the bear is... How do I put this? Okay. We stumble upon the bear. We're going to get rid of Oldgar real quick. He's not there. And the only person here... Actually, no. We're going to say Oldgar is with us. He's not part of the hunting party because he can't fight, as we mentioned before. But we are hunting this bear, which I have a mini for. And this bear is just within reach. We can now take all the glory for ourselves and then fight the bear immediately, or we can wait for the other hunting party to catch up to us and fight all together. In this case, we're just going to keep it simple, and we're just going to stick to just the one group dealing with this. Again, Oldgar is technically on the field, but he's not a combatant. He just helped us find the bear, so he is far away from this. And we are near enough to charge the bear. And the bear is, let's see, an awareness of... Where's the bear stats? If you have all the books in the Game Master's Handbook, the bear stats are on page 177. And the bear has an awareness... we don't have an awareness here. Okay. So instead we're just going to say that it is... We're going to make it a coin flip. So it's going to be 10. He's been fumbling, and we're actually going to make that a 5. So is he paying attention? Yes or no? He needs to beat a 5 in order to be aware. He is not. He rolled 7, so he's looking elsewhere, and we are within range of attacking this bear. And we can fight against it by ourselves. I would not recommend doing this, but let's say that we have everything that we needed to fight this bear. The weapons that we're going to be using, we're going to say it's a spear, and the horses that we have are not supposed to be combat trained, but in this case, we do want to stay mounted. So we're going to say that we have something that's not a rouncy, so an actual war horse with us. I know, they've really outfitted us way better than we should be. And in this case, we are just going to have our spear. We're going to use a charge with the spear, and we are on horseback versus somebody who's not horsed. But a bear is very large, meaning that you're kind of fighting on equal terms. So there's no bonuses to this charge, aside from a surprise. So I'm going to make this a reflexive bonus, meaning that one side's going to get something that the other side's going to get a negative for. So John is going to get a +5 to his charge roll, so his charge is going to be a 15 versus the bear's avoidance. The way that combat's going to work, there is no avoidance, sorry. We're going to see a charge versus a foe that has, because it's not paying attention, does not fight back. The way that this normally would look, if the bear was aware of us, it would be my charge versus the bear's attack. So we're going to see who wins in that fight. So in this case, we're going to see the bear is rolling a claw to try to get me while I'm running past him, and I would try to charge him with my 15 versus his, again, if it's just basic actually, it'd be my 10 versus his 13. He fails and I fail as well, so both of us would fail, and the result of that the result of that would be a failure versus a failure. Combatants lose, neither suffer damage. That's it. In this case, he's not looking. We have a 15 to roll against, and he's not going to counter attack here, so we charge him from behind. He doesn't get to roll anything because he chooses not to do anything because he's surprised. And I still roll a 17, so I rush past him, alert him that he's being attacked. Since I make no connection, I run past him, and I am now nearby but not in melee with him. The bear's not happy about this, so now he is aware of my movements, and we're going to face off against each other during this first round. Again, the party is out and about until things are going to be looking dour for me. The bear is attacking with his claws. So it's a 13 versus a 10. So his 13 versus my 10. He succeeds versus my failure, meaning he gets a success versus my failure. Opponent wins. Character suffers damage minus armor protection value. For this, we're just going to stick with only the gambeson because we are currently hunting. We don't have any mail plate or anything like that, and we usually don't travel with helms unless we're in combat, from what I understand. And you don't hunt with a shield either, so the only armor protection that I have right now is 4. So whatever damage he's going to roll against me right now, I'm only removing 4 damage from that. Let's see if John would die or in this combat situation. Because he passed with a claw attack, if the bear wins the round, he makes 2 separate 4d6 damage rolls instead of a single damage roll 8d6. They're treated as 2 separate wounds, so we have 2 rolls of 4. Oof, I am really good at rolling damage against myself. So 12, 17. He's rolling 20 damage to me. I have an armor of 4, so that means I take 16 damage. What's John's health at? We're going to look at his HP. So we're looking here at the characteristics. His current knockdown is 16, actually. The bear did more damage than that, and without the... We're comparing combat results, and in order to figure out what happens, we see who wins in the exchange. We find out that the bear wins the exchange. So on his first claw attack versus me, when we make contact, the bear swipes at me, he makes contact, and he's going to do 20 damage to me. Before we even look at any of the other numbers, we're going to see if this amount of damage beats the knockdown. If it does, there's a chance of me getting knocked down. But right now we're just going to worry about the damage. He's going to do 20 damage to me. I have an armor of 4 because of the gambeson. So I am taking 16 damage. So I am going to mark that I have 16 damage. I usually count up, but for everybody else's sake, what's my HP? So total hit points is 28. So 20 minus 16 is actually going to be 12. My major wound is actually 12. So I'm taking a major wound. Let's resolve that, and let's see if I get knocked out first. So in order to figure out if I'm getting knocked down, I'm going to roll a horsemanship test just to see if that happens. This case, I rolled 16 versus a horsemanship of 12, so I'm off my horse. I'm knocked down, and a major wound might even trump that, so give me a second. Alright, now we're looking at damage on page 134. If actual damage equals or exceeds the loser's con, so my con is 12. He did 16 damage. That does it. If it exceeds the loser's con, the loser suffers a major wound and falls unconscious. If mounted, they may attempt an emergency dismount, which is an unopposed dex roll. Success indicates a gentle fall, but if it's a failure, I take an extra d6 damage just from the fall, and the d6 damage is not stopped by the armor. So we're testing against a dex of 12. We succeed, so we successfully just like slide off the horse and land on the ground. Because we are down and out, the bear is going to take a swipe a second time. Story-wise, let's just see if it would kill me. That was 12, right? Sorry. That was another 2. Let's just say that was 2. 7, 10, 16. 16 against me. I only get rid of 4, so that's 12 damage, and I only had 12 left, so I would be at 0 health right now on the second swipe. It's here that the other characters show up, and they are going to have their combat with this bear. But John, him trying to get glory has ended up costing him possibly his life in another time. But this first game, we were trying to keep it very simple and lighthearted. If the other party members didn't join at this time, the bear would run away. And regardless of how negative any of these characters get, we're going to make sure that they just stay alive. So John would be at 0 and be knocked out. And the next day, he would wake up with 1 HP. And as soon as he takes a hit, he's knocked out again. That's how it's going to be. And if we ever get to the point where you have the bear just like running rampant against these characters, they'll have to take several days trying to catch up, try to get this bear done. If the bear, in this very, very strange what if scenario, if all the characters somehow are unable to deal with him and it's taking several days, they'd probably send a knight to actually deal with this and get the squires back. And again, they're sending squires to deal with an actual problem that they thought didn't exist really, and they're just gonna do their best to deal with the problem. And off camera, they would deal with the bear. In this case, we're gonna say that the characters help. A successful first aid gets John up during the fight. They all charge. John ends up stabbing the bear in the back. Everybody starts dealing damage to it, and the bear is successfully slain. Oldgar's helped just find the bear. He's staying out of the combat, and that would be the end of the fight. Now, I had in my game the villagers of Imber throw a small party for the squires. They had an eventful night there, and then they were sent with the skin of the bear back to, like, prepared for tanning, back to their home. So they had a prize trophy to send back to in this case it was the Count. So the Count, Count Roderick, they now have a gift for him if they bump into him. So they have the bear skin, and they're going to travel back to Castle Vagon. And on the way, they're going to bump into possibly some... What are they? Vagrants. Not vagrants. They are thieves, highwaymen. And there's a number of highwaymen equal to the amount of characters at the table. So in this case, it's just going to be the one for John. And he would fight against a highwayman or a robber as they try to steal a cow from a local farmer. I say somewhere like even before Till's Head, they bump into this happening. The bestiary entry that I would reference here would be Okay, to determine who they're going to be fighting on the way back, the way that I would stat out the robbers is I would make them peasants with 20 hit points each, and they would have a dagger. Each of them would have a dagger with a brawling skill of 10 and they do 2d6 plus 4 damage. And we keep it simple like that. When your characters are fighting on horseback versus anybody who's not unhorsed or just on foot, they get a reflexive bonus of +5, -5. So whoever's mounted is going to get a +5 to all their rolls, and whoever's fighting on foot versus a mounted opponent is going to have a -5 to all their rolls. So in this case, if we had John versus one of these robbers, he would have a sword skill of, right now he's 12, so he would have a sword skill of 17 versus their brawling skill of 5. And you just make the results happen. You would resolve that combat as you would, and you ask the characters whether they're taking these robbers alive or not. Being knights of this county, you are now going to be part of the class that like keeps order alive. So I would recommend that you just show them that they can choose to take any of these characters alive and prisoner to take them back to the count, or to, in this case, back to Castle Vagon for Sir Erlad or Sir Lycus to deal with. So we'll keep it simple with that. They make their way back to Castle Vagon at the end of that combat, and they are going to bump into Sir Lycus or Sir Elad. And when they report back what happened, that can be the end of the adventure. But in my case, I wanted them to bump into the Count. So we have the Count getting ready to... he's in Sarum, so we're going to move from Vagon down the good road to Sarum, Castle Sarum, and the city of Sarum. And they're going to meet the Count. We yada yada to the actual court. And in the court, they are not knighted. They are not supposed to be talked to. They're not supposed to talk to anybody. So they're kind of there just for Sir Elad. Sir Elad will be introduced to the court. Count Roderick is sitting at a high seat, and he is in the middle of a court with several people. But it is Sir Elad's turn, and Sir Elad introduces the characters, the squires, to the Count or the Countess, and they tell them just like the very, very basics of like, oh, we sent these squires out to hunt hunt a monster, and into the woods, and they dealt with it. They have proof. And it's like, so what happened? Oh, I'll let them tell the story, and then have your players tell the Count or the Countess what happened. And after that, they can offer the bearskin to the Count. The Count will take it as a prize and show up later with a fur like cape or coat. And at the end of that, they have now introduced themselves to the Count. They're able to even talk to the Count specifically, or the Countess, and they are now known by the Count or the Countess and may be knighted by them if you think they did well enough to do that. So whether they actually hunted the bear well enough, or if they told a good enough story, there'd be many reasons for the nobility to just give them a win, so to speak. So that would be the actual end of the adventure. After meeting the Count or the Countess, that is you turning in the quest, you're done. And at the end of this year, for anything that you have checked, which I should have mentioned also, but anything you have checked, you're going to test that skill or that trait. So in this case, we're going to test lazy. And you want to fail, or you might want to fail, sorry. If you fail the roll, that number goes up. So we're going to test lazy. Lazy has a skill of 8, has a target number of 8. We roll 6, it's a success. That means that it doesn't go up, and we're going to erase the check mark. After you roll against any of these, you're also going to just erase the check mark. Then we have the singing. There's a good chance that he'll fail this, so it's going to be a 5. He rolled a 2. We're just going to say that he rolled a 14, and if he fails, so on a 14, we'd erase the check mark and then increase this by 1. So 16 would go up from 5 to a 6. And that's how you would level up in this game. And that would be a little bit of everything for the basics of this game. You now know how to roll dice. You know what the target numbers are. You know that you can hunt. You know that you can take damage. We don't know how to heal yet. Specifically, we are going to keep that vague for now, for this first session, because we don't want anybody dying. That's not the goal of the session. We're just trying to see how everything works for this game. With that, we have everything under our belt for, again, where are the traits, where are the skills. We got to see what armor is. We got to see what the attacks are. On a successful hit against the bear, then I would roll my damage from the spear, depending on what the results are from partial versus full successes. And with all of that said, I think, yeah, we've even seen the drive characteristics, the regular characteristics, and everything else here. So that's kind of like the tour of the character sheet. That is the tour of what the land is like. We got to see the Marshal Salisbury, who is the person who leads the armies for the Count, and we got to see the Count for the first time. What I ended up doing at the end of this as well, for the last bit of extra credit for this, I ended up having a small moment where out in the fields outside of Sarum, they're sitting on the walls, the party, and they see a blue-robed man with a pointy hat, stars all around, stars on his hat and his robes, and he's just walking through the field looking for something on the ground. And my characters took the bait. They went out into the fields to help this man look for something, and he's looking for a crystal bauble. And the crystal bauble is easy to find if they roll for it, but this is their first chance to meet Merlin. So I had Merlin show up, and he blessed them, because something that you should know about Merlin is that he's versed in all sorts of magic, and by all sorts I do mean like all magic. So if there's a magic effect that you might have in the game, Merlin would know it. He already knows how to cast it and everything, and Merlin is going to know that these characters are important for some reason. Whether they're going to help him find the sword later, whether they're going to help in combats to come, whatever's going to happen. What I ended up doing, because I am very good, as you can see from earlier, I'm very good at rolling damage against myself. I have lost characters in large battles. So what I ended up having Merlin do is that if a character dies during a big battle, they are given a trinket before that. So during this first meeting, he sings the song and gives the characters a totem or a fetish of some sort. And this fetish has 3 strings that are tied into a rope, 3 cords that are tied into a rope, and or braided into each other. And if one of them dies during the combat, if anybody else is also dying, or if there's at least one death, that rope is going to disintegrate or be used up, and the character is just going to come back at 1 HP. And it's just going to be the one time, just so you don't immediately lose a character in the first big battle. It's to prevent from you having done all this work for making a character and then having to make a brand new character right after. I did that myself. I just had Merlin do that. You could have Merlin just give them magic items if you wanted. A +1 sword or something like that. Not a magical sword, but literally a sword that they just handle better. So they have a bonus 1 to any of their sword skills here. Stuff like that. Keep it simple. Make the first meeting of Merlin something to remember. I am currently playing a specific type of music whenever Merlin shows up, so we're in the middle of talking about something else. I'll put that song on, and immediately one of my players is like, "Oh crap, he's back," and he's just looking around for him, and it's been really fun. I think this is a very good first adventure for your players. I had a lot of fun running it. We were able to do this whole thing truncated within 2 hours, just explaining it. I'm going to have a quick slideshow after this. I Actually, we're going to do a bump with all the information real quick, and then I'm going to do my outro. So I'll see you in a second. All right, welcome back. And this is just an outro, so thank you all very much for watching. I hope you had a great time watching this. If you have any questions, please ask me in the comments below. Give me any messages for anything that you have a question about. Any clarifications, anything that I'm missing from this adventure, or if you have bumped into a very unique situation that you need some help with, I'm always available for questions, and I'm still small enough that I'm able to answer anything. That's fine. No problems. So, with that being said, I hope this is useful to you. I hope that you guys have a wonderful time running this and surviving this adventure. It's pretty fun. So, thank you. Have a great day. Have a great night. And as always, stay positive.